Hello everyone, this is Jasmina. Although I've talked about apartments and condos in every video, especially about charts, I'm still getting some requests to do just apartments and condos all by itself, so here goes. Now the charts for an apartment or condo are slightly more complicated than that of a house. By that I mean a single family residence. Now, most duplexes and even triplexes can be treated as a house as long as they're not stacked units. That is, as long as there's not different family or different people that you might not know living either above you or below you, then that becomes an apartment. But if it's side by side, duplexes and triplexes can be treated as a house, but they're not so good, mostly because you don't have you don't have the chance to tap into any of the external landforms on one or two sides of where you are because you're blocked by a different building. Now, apartments and condos have the same three charts as a house does. However, the flying star chart its influence is greatly reduced because it's the same for all units and the strength is proportional. So if you have 10 units in the apartment, you get 1/10 of the energy. If you have 100 apartments, you have 1%. And if you have 200 apartments in that building, you have 1/2 of 1% of whatever the flying star chart energy is. So if it's a really good chart, like a combo 10 or something like this, you only get a tiny effect. If the more apartments you have in that building, the smaller the effect. Now the purple, white, and the Cheeman charts are the primary charts for the apartments and condos because they can be different for different units on the same floor. And the purple, white chart will be different for the same unit on an adjacent floor. Now almost all of the units, except for perhaps the top unit, the walls and the apartments will be stacked one on top of the other. They'll be identical. They even usually have identical windows. However, sometimes they do stagger them, and so they might also have different Cheeman charts. Depends on the details. But oftentimes, every apartment of a certain shape has the same Cheeman chart, but they will have different purple-white charts. So for an apartment or a condo, you actually need to identify two facings. With a house, you only identify one. The first one you need to identify is the entire building's facing direction. And that's the building as a whole. And the second thing you need to identify is the unit facing direction. This is usually defined by a balcony door, if you have a balcony, or if you don't, it's by the largest window. It is true that finding the entire building's facing direction can be tricky for unusual shaped buildings. For example, there is an apartment building, of course they're very expensive, that is shaped like a butterfly from a satellite view, or at least semi-butterfly. I don't think it really looks exactly like a butterfly, but that's actually not terribly hard. Each wing of the building, like each wing of the butterfly, is sort of separate, and they each have a different facing direction. Now, most times, the facing direction will be the side where basically images are taken from when you're advertising the building. So, for example, if the owner wants to rent out an apartment and he puts an ad on the internet and they show the building, that the image that you see, the bigger side of the image that you see, because they often go from a corner, whatever that is usually the wall that will define the facing direction. And so the facing direction is 90 degrees to that wall. So it's typically the best looking direction, and that's why they use it when they take photos. If you have an oval or round building, which again is usually a very expensive apartment, then it's where the main doors are located for the pedestrian traffic. So if someone is dropped off by a taxi and is visiting, it's those doors that they enter. You may have a different door that you get from parking. You may have a parking deck somewhere. You may enter a different door, but this is the door. It's the main door for outsiders. That will define the facing direction. And of course, it's 90 degrees perpendicular to the doors. Now, the apartments with separate wings often have different facing for each wing. And this can get a little tricky. And if you live in a place that's kind of tricky, I would say that you need to get help. It's too hard to do this any other way, really. It's too hard to give all the examples that are possible out there. Now, the period of the building and of all of the units in the building is determined by the date of the first occupants moved in any of the units. So it doesn't matter if your apartment wasn't rented out in period 7. Maybe it didn't get rented out till period 8, but somebody moved in period 7. So the apartment is a period 7. They don't have to stay there. They don't have to be there anymore. But as long as somebody is occupying the building, living there, that defines the period basically in perpetuity. Now, theoretically, you could change the period of an apartment or a condo, but basically every unit must be unoccupied for 90 consecutive days, or the entire building's roof is replaced at the same time. That is, everything is off and you're down to just the structural stuff. And oftentimes, if that happens, it's because they're actually having to replace structure. Most of the time, the roof is fixed from place to place. Maybe a part of it is replaced, but not everything at the same time, because that disrupts a whole bunch of people's lives. So they tend to try to just fix piecemeal until it gets so bad that it really needs replacing. And of course, they could, at least in theory, add 1/3 of the building size onto the existing building, but that's extremely rare. Now, if you're unoccupied for 90 days, everybody's out, that usually means some very big disaster has happened, like an earthquake that makes the building unsafe to live in. And of course, maybe a lot of other buildings are unsafe to live in. So it takes, a good 90 days, maybe even a half a year or more before all the buildings get fixed. So that's a possibility. Now, a building facing and the period, this is what governs the flying star chart for the entire building and each unit. They will share the same chart. And you just put that chart over your unit if you want to know what your flying star chart is. Again, it's not terribly important, especially if you have a lot of units in your building. So, like I said, it depends on how many units you have, how much energy you receive. And in general, it's not a lot, unless you're in a very small apartment. Now, each unit within a building can have a different unit facing direction. It depends on how the building is laid out. And the unit facing is determined by the facing direction of the balcony door or the largest window if you don't have a balcony. If you've got more than one balcony, it's the one in the family area. And if you have a sliding door at your balcony door, it's the center of the moving part, the sliding part. And if it's the largest window, most large windows are not operable because they're quite heavy to move something that big. So they're fixed windows. Take the center of that window. Now, the unit facing and the building facing can be in the same direction or they can be in different directions. Depends on how the building's laid out. And I will show you some examples. Now, if your entry door, the one that you enter your apartment or condo with, enters directly to the outside and doesn't enter an inside hallway, this will define your unit facing even if you do have a balcony, because this is actually real movement of people and energy in and out, directly to the outside. And so that's one exception to this rule. Now, if you enter an interior hallway when you leave your unit, then you use your balcony door or your largest window. And again, if you have a sliding door, you want to measure the center of the moving part of the door, and usually the center of the largest window that it usually does not open. Now, the best type of apartment, which some people may find a little surprising, is actually a studio apartment, as there are no walls to block chi flow. So chi will get to every part of the apartment. So it makes it a lot easier to decide where to place your bed and all this kind of stuff. So you don't have to worry about can it get through the door from where the energy starts. It's actually a lot easier to deal with. Now, if you want to analyze chi flow through the flying stars, you can, and there's two ways to do it. You can analyze it from the building's main doors to the elevators or the stairs, depending on your apartment, to the entry floor. It's from the stairs at the entry level of the whole building, and then your floor level. And then also from that location at the top of the stairs or wherever the elevator is to your unit door. And then you would go from your unit door to the room doors to the important item, which is either a desk or a bed or your range. Now, the stuff in red, this is, you lay the flying star chart over the entire building. And that will allow you to flow the energy from the main doors up to your floor at the elevator level or at the stair level. Then when you look here, you're going to use this small Tai Chi over your entire apartment to find out what star you have there and see if energy flows from the elevator to your unit door. And then to the room door and the important items, that's when you do the small Tai Chi over that room in question. I do have a Chi Flow video that you can watch to understand how to do this. And basically, this here is like your main door in a house when you're analyzing chi flow within the house. You just have to take this extra step of seeing whether or not the chi flow makes it to your unit door. Now you can also analyze chi flow from the largest window or the balcony door. Both ways are possible. And because you may get chi from both directions. Now, just like in a house, you need to square off the space, the area of your house or of your apartment or condo. And any projection that's over 1/3 in either direction needs to be included. That's the same rule for the house, and I'll show you some examples. Now, the balconies are not included as projections when you square off the apartment because they are outside. The outside air is directly interacting with them. Now, the purple, white, and the Chi-Min charts become more important charts in analyzing an apartment or a condo because they differ from unit to unit. And that's the reason why, because they differ, you will get the full effect of these charts, unlike the tiny piece of the flying star chart. And you can watch my video, creating your purple white chart, if you want to learn how to do this. And I also have the Chi-Min chart for all periods, all facing, all door sectors. That gives you a time that you can look up, a date and time that you can look at the Chinese Metasoft site. It looks like you might have to pay now. I don't know. I don't know if you can get a 1 month or 1 week subscription anymore. I couldn't find it anymore. Now, to use the balcony door subsector or the subsector at the center of the largest window, you are going to do this. This is what will be referred to as the door sector. So this can be a little confusing because this is made for doing for houses too. And this would be the main door sector for a house, but it will be one of these subsectors for that you will see listed in this video. So here's an example. So this is a very simple apartment, kind of deliberately so, because it will show you everything we need to know without being insane. Now, this happens to be the facing direction of the building. Simply, there's other apartments around it. This is the only place that any really decent chi can come in. And also, it's what they're going to take a photo of when they want to advertise the apartment. So we're assuming there's a lobby here, and then behind some more doors, there's elevators and stairs. Now, these are not apartments. They could be storage. They could be almost anything. They could, even in an expensive place, this could be a gym or a sauna room or maybe a salon. I mean, it could be anything. I just labeled these as non-apartments. When we go to floors above, these will become apartments, but on the main floor, they're not. And so we have A, B, C, and D, and then we're going to have E and F on the upper floors. But this is a period 6 building. This is the north arrow, so this faces 152. And so that puts that in southeast 3. So this is the chart for this building in the standard way of doing the chart. Now it has a potential to be a 7-star robbery building, but it doesn't meet the requirements. It doesn't have the main door where the double stars are, and it doesn't have the right locations for doors that enter and have an uninhibited flow to the center. So it can't be done. So now we just read these as simple combos. That is, there's like 81 different possible combinations, and that information is out there fairly easy on the internet. Now I've turned this so that this is the building with the southeast down here. So now this is what you would actually lay over the chart. If you wanted to do it that way, or you can use the pie chart. Actually, the pie chart is a little better, but every unit shares the same thing. And you would lay it over this north is that way. It lays directly over this and over each apartment without rotating. So let's look at the building as a whole. And what do we see? Because if we're looking for chi flow, well, we see that there's a 9 here for this door on the left, and then there's the 4 is for these 2 doors next to it. So we have both 9 and 4 going to 5, because this is where the elevator and or the stairs, probably both, are located. And in both cases, chi actually flows to here because the 4 is a wood, controls the earth, and the fire, which is the 9, creates the earth. So both allow, it doesn't matter which door you use, the elevator receives that energy. Now, that is a good thing to know. And I wanted to show you also, what does this look like? This is the facing direction of each unit. So E and F, and this is some upper floor, E and F share the same building facing. Their units are the same, but these other share a different one, and it is basically defined by this largest window. Simple as that. So let's look at one single apartment. Now this is not very good because this door is quite right opposite this big window, which is where the chi wants to come in. So every time you open up this door, if chi were to make it from the elevator, it would just go right out and it wouldn't collect in the room. And if it comes from the window, every time you open the door, it also leaves. So this is a bad setup, but sometimes that's the way it is, and you almost certainly cannot move the door in an apartment. So you need to block this direct line. So you could put up a screen. It should be at least 4 feet high. It can be higher, but if it's higher than the door, it doesn't make any extra improvement, so it doesn't have to be too high. And you don't want to be able to see through it, so you don't want like a glass screen, but you could have like a fabric screen that's translucent, that is, you can see shadows behind it, but you can't make anything out. That's okay. That's enough to block the energy. And whether it comes in from the door, it'll collect here. It won't just shoot out, or if it's here, it'll collect here, and then it will go to the rest of the room, or the apartment. Now, there's other ways you can do it. You can place a table. This could be a dining table, so you'd also have chairs, or you could place a sofa or something. It depends on basically what you have and how the rest of the apartment is laid out. So we don't know that, and we just don't care, because the screen will do it for you. So let's look at the elevators. Remember, we had 5 at the elevators. Well, does it make it to the 8? Well, these are both earth. So the energy from the elevators makes it through this door. And so that's very good. And it when we're here, well, actually, here we have the 8. This energy will want to flow out to this 7 because this is earth. It creates metal. So you really need to place something here, because otherwise it just wants to fly right on out. It supercharges that direct line across. Now, if we look from here, we could get energy in here too. And that can affect different areas. It will make this a good area, the northwest, because these are both metal. It'll make this a good area because this is metal, produces water. It won't give anything to the door, so that's good. It will keep energy from leaking out whenever you open up the door, even if you don't have a screen. It actually gives energy to both of these areas. It does not to here, and we're talking about this window here. And it does not to either one of these. But when we look at the energy flow here, it makes it to here. It also makes it to here, all these places. So basically, the only place that's not receiving energy from either the window or the door is this south area here. But it depends on what else you have there, whether or not this is a good area. The numbers aren't too bad. They're not great, but they're not too bad. So when we're talking about the purple-white chart, we really don't need all these subsectors, but they're there for other purposes. But again, we have to line up our pie chart with the north. So you have to move that north to the center of the apartment. And for an apartment, you just go from the interior wall to the interior wall, because these walls can be different thicknesses, and you don't really usually know, because they're not that accurate when they show you the layout of the apartment. They just put a wall. It could be thicker or thinner, you have no idea. So just inside to inside is good enough for an apartment. That's how you find the center. And this happens to be a West 2 door, although this is a window. It's the door sector. And if this is 9, the 9th floor, this is apartment 9C. 9 is the key number that I talk about in the video. And so this is the chart that turns up. Now, if you look, this is a pearl string where everything is one number after the other. So this is a very good, this is actually a permanent pearl string. So you tend to be quite happy in this apartment. Regardless of what happens in your life, you tend to be happy. And things tend to go a little better too. Now, every year, each number goes down by 1. So if we take this sector here, this one will be 8, this will be 6, this will be 7, which is right here. So these numbers never change. These combinations of numbers never change. They just move around, where this will be, this will move here the next year, and so forth. And it just moves around, but these numbers stay the same. And the middle also moves. Now, it does follow the Loshu path, but since we don't have south up here, you can't just do the Loshu path. It won't work because south needs to be up for the Loshu path to work. But that's how you figure it out. Now, when it comes to the Chiman chart, it's a period 6. Now, if you noted in the purple-white, we didn't have a period. It doesn't matter. It changes every year. But the Chiman chart will stay. It's a period 6 apartment, southwest facing unit, and the door is in west 2. And here we have to be specific of the subsector. And this is what we have. So we have here, we actually have at the main window where really most of the chi will probably come from, we have the snake and the fear. So how do we interpret that? Well, the fear door says you need to be cautious because things might happen negatively if you're not careful. So it's telling you in this apartment you need to be cautious. The snake, basically it's okay as long as you're honest. It can, you may have some increased intuition here also. So this may help you know what to avoid with the fear door. So this isn't terrible, but it also may make you a bit inhibited. So, you know, it's a little tricky. But what does this mean? This means that you actually might not be very inspired when you're living here because this is the energy that kind of affects the whole apartment. If you're going to study, you want to be in this northwest sector here because you've got moon and open, a very good sector for that. But still, this affects everything. So you may not feel very inspired to improve your life, but you're going to be happy. At least to a certain point where maybe you realize things need to change. But you know, you really want to be inspired. And so if you need to do that, I would say this is your best door. And maybe the heaven and scenery, even though the flying star is not very, or even though it doesn't get a lot of energy, it still has some because of the Chiman. So this is good for getting some attention, but this is where you want to do the bulk of your work. So let's look at apartment A. Now the question is, do we include this bump out? Well, I've taken this distance here, divided it by 3, and this bump out in this direction is more than 1/3, so it must be included. So this is where we draw the lines, not across here. It's down here. And again, we put in the north arrow. And then this is the flying star chart again. Now 5 is at the elevator. Energy actually goes from this door to the elevator. So energy doesn't enter from the ground floor to this apartment. So all of the energy really has to come in from here. And actually this is a pretty good star for this energy to come in. But again, depends how many apartments you have. It may not have much effect. So we're going to look at, of course, the purple, white, and the Chiman chart in a bit. But here we have this energy. It will go to these 2 areas. So it's true that if you open the door, you're going to lose a little energy. But it's still okay. I mean, it energizes the door. It depends on what else is here. That can be helpful. But it's not directly in line with the window, so it doesn't shoot out. It just sort of oozes out, and that's not so bad. Just don't leave the door open long periods of time. And so basically it does this, and it also does this area. These three sectors are energized directly by this. Now that means the rest of them aren't. Oh, well, except for it itself is also, of course. But you know, this doesn't look as good in some ways as the other apartment. But let's look at the purple white chart. Now this is the 8th floor. So I just thought I'd do a different one. It's northwest facing. And so this is the chart. Now this has no special formations. So if we look at the combo, it actually is quite interesting. We have the 9 and the 4, which is a HER2 combo of metal, and it's with a metal star. So this is not so bad. Here we have a 3 and an 8, which is a wood HER2. It is with the 5, so some of the energy is a little drained because some of the energy of the wood actually, it actually feeds from there. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. This will feed the wood a little bit. It's not the best kind of action, but it can. Now the 3 and the 7 is not a HER2, but it is a combo 10, so it's not so bad. The 1 and the 6 is a water HER2, and unfortunately it does feed the wood, so it weakens it a bit. The 2 and the 7 is another HER2, it's a fire HER2, and the 4 actually feeds it. So that's pretty good. Now this one doesn't have anything special, but these numbers in general are good, so it's a perfectly good sector. This is a medium sector. It's actually going to be much better in period 9. And remember, every year everything goes down by 1, but these combinations always stay the same. They just move around. This one, some people consider a 1 and a 5 a HER2. I haven't had enough experience to know whether or not it is a true HER2, or at least a 50% HER2, and it would be water if it is, and the metal actually helps improve that a bit. The least good sector is probably this one, because we have the 5, and anything you do to the 5 to reduce this, you also affect the 2, which right now is not a bad thing to affect. But next year, when we enter period 9, you are tamping down on some of the 2. So it's not a sector you can do a lot with. But that's only one sector, although it's going to move around every year, and so you just have to kind of deal with it. So there will be places in the apartment that are very good for specific things, and it depends on what you want to do. And I do have a video about HER2 if you want to know what all of that means. But basically, if we look at here where all the energy enters, this year it's not too bad, but it's going to take a while before we get one of the better sectors to come into here. So it is just something that means that basically your happiness can vary year to year. And that's just the way sometimes it is. Now the Chimen, this again, a period 6 building, northwest facing unit, and a north 3 door, and this is what we have. Now, this is much better. We have earth and scenery. This is very, very good. Somebody here is going to be able to really make some headway. They're going to be noticed, and hopefully they're doing good work, and they'll be noticed for doing good work. Now, if they're already in one of these types of fields, and this could also include interior design and also Feng Shui analysis, they will have a big boost. But no matter who you are and what you do, you still get the boost from the scenery door. So here, you're going to be inspired, but your happiness will vary from year to year. And it kind of depends on what you want in your life, which apartment is better. Now I am preparing some 24 mountain charts with the Jimin Spirit and the Jimin Door, which are the two most important elements in a Jimin chart. And I'm going to sell them at the PayHip site. But you can get all of the charts with this book, the Jimin Dunja Feng Shui by Joey Yap. I think it's over $100 now. It's not cheap. You can also watch my video and then find a place where you can find the appropriate Jimin chart. And it's looking more and more like you may have to pay. So I intend this to be a lot cheaper than paying for either one of these. You can use the balcony, door subsector, or the subsector of the center of the largest window. And this is the door subsector that you refer to. And again, I'm just repeating myself, but I want to be clear about what you use here because I did this for a house first. Now I'm also planning on creating some purple white charts, and there'll be 9 of them for each key number and door sector. And they'll also be sold through PayHip, but that's going to be somewhere a bit farther down the line. And the door location or subsector always means the point where the chi is coming in from. And so in a house, that's the main door. In an apartment or a condo, it's going to be the balcony door or the largest window. Now, if you really want a good source for the 81 combinations, there are several good books out there. There are websites that give you some information, but sometimes they're easy to find, sometimes they're hard to find. But the books often go into a lot more detail, and they're not terribly expensive, most of them. Now, the Feng Shui website, fengshui.com website, gives you general information. They'll say either a G for good or a B for bad about the 81 combinations. But this chart is only relevant for period 9, and the interpretations will change in period 8, and next year these interpretations will change. So you can, this is the current place. I hope they will update it. I think they will, because it's a pretty good site. So basically star 2 becomes timely in period 9, where it was a very bad star in period 8. So that's going to change how you interpret anything with the 2, any kind of combo with the 2. Now I do think that 2-3 will likely stay at least a bit negative. It usually is said to lead to arguments. I haven't really found that in my life, but it will probably lessen the strength of the arguments because 2 will become a lot more positive. But the 2-5 combo will likely stay negative. 2-5 now means illness and misfortune, but next year it'll just really go to basically misfortune. But when you try to tamp down the 5 with metal, you also tamp down the 2. Now the 2 in period 9 is a well star. And this we're talking about in your flying star chart. Not your annual chart, but your flying star chart. Now this of course assumes you do not have an activated special formation in the flying star chart, and you can have a combo 10, pearl string, parent string, or 7-star robbery. That will make all of your stars in your flying star chart timely. And so that's good. And it's also assuming you don't have an activated special formation in your purple-white chart. And so you can either have a pearl string or a parent string. And it's good if you can have them, but most places don't have them. And what that means is that both the 3 and the 5 are no longer negative if you have one of these special formations in those specific charts. Now, the annual star 2 will still remain an illness star. Maybe not as strong as it once was, but it's still an illness star. Now, you still want to look and see whether or not you can see a mountain, and this, of course, also means hills or higher ground. But in this case, it's higher than your unit. The ground must be higher than your unit. So otherwise, it doesn't count. It's lower than you. or water from your window or your balcony, it will activate the flying stars in that sector. The sitting star will be activated by a mountain. The facing star will be activated by water. Now, it helps strengthen good stars, and let's hope you have good stars there in your flying star chart. But it's still not going to overcome the fact that you're sharing it with everybody. It just makes it a little better. That's all. And you can also, it may even work much, much better, is activate these good flying stars by the appropriate activities. That's still worth doing, especially if you have good purple white and good Chi-Men properties in that area. So basically, working or studying or learning something new in a sector with visible water and a good facing star is ideal. And when we talk about facing sitting stars, we're only talking about the flying stars, not the purple white. Cooking, exercising, sleeping, anything like that is best if you have a visible mountain and a good sitting star. That will help us accentuate that. Now, there is an advantage to living in a high-rise apartment, is that you're more likely to be able to see mountains or water. So that is good. But the disadvantage is that the flying star chart is weakened as it is shared, and sometimes this can severely weaken things. It depends how many apartments there are, but it can make it hard to take advantage of this. So that's basically it. I'd like to thank you for watching. Please feel free to contact me here or leave a comment, and I will have more videos as always. Thank you again for watching.